Dan Eddinger's company, Field Vets, is placing transitioning military veterans and their families in all sorts of field service roles. Coming up next on Veteran on the Move.
Welcome to Veteran on the Move. If you're a veteran in transition, an entrepreneur wannabe, or someone still stuck in that JOB trying to escape, this podcast is dedicated to your success. And now, your host, Joe Crane.
The top 7 paths to freedom is my free gift to you for listening to the show, featuring 7 great ways for a veteran to take their first step into the exciting world of entrepreneurship. To receive your free gift, go to veteranonthemove.com, or if you're listening on a mobile device, you can text the word veteran to 38470. After retiring from the Navy in 2011, Dan Eddinger has worked in several companies since then, in fields ranging from smart grid and field services to tower services, including an interesting year-long segue running a North Carolina target, where he had the opportunity to learn a number of things he was not good at. Dan recently left a director role at Honeywell to start his new company, Field Vets, where his team is placing transitioning military, veterans, and their family members in field service roles of all sorts, and are building an end-to-end veteran engagement ecosystem aimed at transforming the way vets and the companies they want to hire them interact. All right, Dan Eddinger from Field Vets, welcome to Veteran on the Move. Thanks for being here today. Before we get to talking about business and entrepreneurship, take us back and tell us what you did in the Navy.
Thanks a bunch, Joe, for the opportunity, and certainly will. I enlisted in the Navy out of northeastern Ohio back in 1990 as an enlisted nuclear machinist mate, and went through the nuclear training pipeline. Had a great time, did really well, ended up in Ballston Spa, New York, at one of the prototypes where I was picked up for an enlisted commissioning program. An awesome opportunity. I already had a wife and kids at the time, so going to a ROTC unit or something like that wasn't really an option for us. So an ECP program was great. Went to Auburn University. The deal is to give you 3 years to get your degree done, up to a maximum of 3 years. Went in and first went into mechanical engineering, then went over to materials engineering because it's a part of the nuclear pipeline when you're in nuclear power school, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I went and did that. Graduated with a bachelor's in materials engineering, and then you get the august privilege of going back through nuclear power training as an officer. Kind of steps it up a notch. It was a little more challenging, but got through that. I actually went to OCS there right after going to Auburn. So went to OCS in Pensacola. Great time there. Second tour of Marine drill instructors. It was fantastic, and went off to back through the nuclear power training pipeline. Went to my first boat out of Norfolk, the James K. Polk. I went basically reported and then left on my first deployment, my first ever submarine or any other ship of significance underway. Right then and there over to the Mediterranean. Had a great time. It was really the first significant travel I did in my entire life, and went straight to the Mediterranean. So it was fantastic and saw a lot of really cool places. Decommissioned that ship after we came back from that deployment over in Bremerton, Washington. Came back across, did basically a split tour as a JO to a second boat. Did a shore duty in recruiting where I ran the enlisted side of Navy Recruiting District, Ohio. That was great. Learned a lot of stuff. Had a really large team, and that was great. Went to my second tour as a department head. You have to go back through submarine school for some stuff. Landed up in Groton, Connecticut on the Dallas, and then split toured from the Dallas over to the Henry M. Jackson over in back over on the West Coast in Bangor, Washington, where I finished out my career, finished a navigator tour there, went on an individual augmentee over to Kuwait on Third Army staff, where I was the director of Joint Visitors Bureau, which was fantastic, an unbelievable 6.5 or 7 months. Basically did VIP tours for the highest of high-level VIPs, culminating with a presidential trip, which was just unbelievable, the entire experience. Came back, had a couple years left, and really made the decision that the plan was I was going to go from there and go to retirement. I had about 2 years left before hitting 20, and the wife and I conferred and decided that we'd probably go ahead and transition out. And I went to it was a hiring conference or some sort of a transition conference up there in Bangor, Washington, and really got the message loud and clear that if you're going to do this successfully, that you need to learn how to network and you need to learn how to talk to people. And there's all this overhead about the cultures not mixing and all this sort of stuff. I really heard that and sort of jumped in with earnest, trying to learn how to do that effectively and paying attention to people and learning how, to make relationships and all that. It was great. Had a fair amount of time as I was in a training command up there in Bangor, Washington, TTF Bangor. So I could go over to Seattle, got involved with the Seattle Rotary. They were unbelievable. I think they call themselves the oldest Rotary in the world. And it was just a super forward-leaning organization, met some great people. And it was funny as those couple years worth of preparation for transition progressed, I really felt like I was getting it and I was figuring out all these sorts of things. But it was strange when it finally came time to pull the trigger and I went on terminal leave and I had 2 months of paychecks left and it was time to get a real job. I only had a couple of offers on the table, and it was humbling that here I was, retiring lieutenant commander, nuclear guy, all this kind of stuff. But it came down to just a couple of different offers, and the one that I took was with a small technology company based in Vancouver, BC. Ironically, I could just drive. I drove from my place in Bremerton up the road into across the border and up into Canada to do my interviews. And that in the end, that's the one that I took. The way I made that connection was it was all about LinkedIn. I had heard this whole message and I'd made some connections through a group. I pointed all my monster search engine terms to North Carolina because that's where my wife said we were moving. And I said, sure, whatever. So there was this company, they have an operations wing here in Raleigh where I'm still at. And made a connection here. He put my resume in front of the operations guy up in Vancouver, and boom, that all worked out. And I landed with that company. I was hired as a field project manager for this small technology and smart grid company. Smart grid being smart metering and all that sort of thing. Made the trip across. That was great. Spent about 2 years with that company. I've been retired for about 6 years now. Spent my first 2 years with this smart grid company based here in Raleigh. Got kind of mad being a Navy nuke that I thought I knew what an engineering operation looked like, and we were having some real product quality issues. And kind of went back and forth and talked to some folks and decided that I'd leave and do something different because my team, I'd been promoted to the director of field services. My team was taking the brunt of these issues that we were having. And so I thought I had said my piece and thought I had a plan, but in the end I left because of some product quality issues. I went to what turned out to be an ill-advised career segue where I went and I worked through some connections I made in my transition. I went and worked for Target. They hired me to go into their little store manager boot camp program, sort of as a 14-week training program. Mm-hmm. Went in there, did that program. It was great. And then I got my own store. And I'm here. I live in Cary, North Carolina, and the store was in Rocky Mount. Is still in Rocky Mount. So I was driving. I thought it sounded like a great idea. But I was driving an hour each way every day, doing something that I wasn't good at. I really, really learned things that I was not good at when I was there. It just wasn't a good fit. Wasn't a good fit. Mm-hmm. So worked there for a year. I left right after the holiday season. I actually left without a job. Said, hey, I'm going to give you a 30-day notice to make sure you guys get taken care of. And the funny part there is I could have sworn I told my wife that I quit my job. And halfway through that 30 days, we were talking about something and it came up, and she said, "But you would always tell me if you were going to quit, right?"
I thought I did.
This pit in my stomach, it was unbelievable. And I didn't tell her, though. I was really hustling out there, landed a fantastic job, excuse me, with a tower services business here in town. And I told my wife, as soon as I got that job and been offered and accepted the thing, I told her, I have to tell you something that has really been bothering me. But we got over it. So I worked for a tower services business. And the cool part about that was that they had hired me because I could talk recruiting and I could talk training, and they needed somebody to formalize their recruiting and training and certification of tower climbers. So I came in, and in about a month time frame, I went and cataloged all the skill sets, built training documentation that any Navy nuke would look and say, wait a minute, that looks exactly like how I trained in the nuclear Navy, because it was, and basically built out their program, and off we went and recruited. And in about 7 months before I left for a position that paid quite a bit more, I hired 65 folks, 40 of them were veterans, went up and trained them how to climb towers and all that. And it was great. Left there, went over to another smart grid company, was Elster, was bought by Honeywell. And here about 3 or 4 months ago, I left Honeywell as a director of field services there to start this business that I'm in, Field Vets, which is where I'm at now.
And when you walked away from your last job at Honeywell and started Field Vets, your entrepreneurial venture, so you've gone all in? You just left and went all in with your entrepreneurial venture, right?
Pretty much.
Does the wife know?
She does. I informed her. There was a little build up to it because for about 2 months, I had tried a couple things along the way because what I was doing just wasn't really sinking in. I wasn't terribly passionate about it. I loved the folks that I was working with and all that, but I wasn't really there. So I tried a couple things along the way, and sort of the October, November of last year, a group of folks that I'd worked with, and I've been really blessed with unbelievable mentors that I'd advocate folks in transition do, is look for mentors, not just a network, but mentors. So these folks were really invested in me and the stuff that I had built. As I'd gone along, I'd continued building systems and all that. So this group kind of started to coalesce, and we started getting really serious, and the vision came together around what Field Vets is. And right at the end of the year, the very direct and honest question was, hey, Dan, what will it take to go full time here? Because this is pretty serious and the opportunity is fantastic. And we sort of settled around, let's put a couple of months worth of salary in a bank, and let's get some funding around this thing, and let's go. And so that was what it was. And I came back from our little holiday hiatus at Honeywell, and turned in my resignation, and that was that. So right. It was pretty exciting.
Well, hey, Dan, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to dive into Field Vets and what that's all about. Have you joined the Veteran on the Move Facebook group? I personally invite every guest that I have on the podcast to join the group. So the Veteran on the Move Facebook group is a great way to connect with previous podcast guests. Our Facebook group will keep you in touch with other veterans that are transitioning to entrepreneurship, and you will also get great updates and free guides on the people, programs, and resources that will help you in your transition to entrepreneurship. All right, we're back talking with Dan Eddinger from Field Vets. And Dan, you went over quite extensively your Navy career and post-Navy career with a lot of the different jobs and occupations you had. And we're going to talk about Field Vets here in a second. It seems to me, what I know about Field Vets and listening to your background, you basically took a lot of the work experience and knowledge that you had over all those years, especially after getting out of the Navy, and you saw a lot of these, you referred to the one company you worked for, a lot of tower workers. These are all folks that work out in the field. You know, they're out doing the good work out in the field. They're not sitting in the office. And you're also heavily experienced in recruiting and hiring people, not only in the military, but in the civilian sector. So let's go over this. It seems to me what you did was you saw a need out there in the civilian sector for hiring field workers, and you see a match for that need, and that's veterans who have a lot of experience being in the field. And so tell us where the idea came up from Field Vets and what it's all about.
Absolutely, and you're pretty close to exactly right on there. In those number of positions I held after I left, retired from the Navy, I just started applying systems and processes and things that I had learned along the way and how to be organized and how to build teams. And it is each time that iterated from company to company, I gained more exposure to the business side, of which, of course, I didn't know anything about when I was in the military. I'd never seen, pro forma budgets and all that kind of thing. But as I made some really great relationships and sought out mentors who could teach me things about how to run a business, all of this stuff started coming together. It's you build processes and you build systems, and that supports how you sell a business and how you promote a business. And so when I landed at Honeywell, which was the position before I'm at now, I had all of this stuff, and I had this great group of people who I could talk to about how does this work. And I started actually going out and getting business for the company that I was in, built a services catalog, built business models to go land services business. Of course, all this is a common theme with field vets, is it's all field related stuff. But all that really came together around a set of concepts and a business model where relationships in the military gets you access to folks who need work and are wired. A good number of them are wired to go do stuff in the field. If you give somebody a truck and a procedure and you train them right and you take care of them, they can go out and do stuff and deploy technology of all different sorts. And all of that sort of body of knowledge went into these final maybe 6 months or so of discussions leading up to the formation of Field Vets that we could monetize this. And really, it was a couple of my mentors who had unbelievable connections to some very large services businesses that affirmed all of that and said, in fact, my one business partner ran a very large service business. She had 5,000 people working for her all across the country, and they had turnover on the order of 100% a year. So just that churn and all the stuff that goes into hiring people in military, transitioning military from all the branches are such a good fit that we put that business model using some of the tools that I had, knowledge of my mentors, put it all together, packaged it, put some money around it, did kind of an initial friends and family round of funding, put about $100,000 together from that group, and went out into business and started learning kind of through bumps and bruises, stuff that I didn't know already, but just leveraged mentors and all that around that business model, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So take us to the beginning of, like, what are some of the things you've learned, like from the very beginning of starting the business, like the mechanics and some of the legalities and setting stuff up. And then you might want to reveal to everybody that you're actually working in a co-working space right now too. So I'd like to hear a little bit about your experiences with the co-working space, because I do most of my work out of the house, but we're about to have 4 kids in the house on summer break. I'm going to be escaping to a co-working space this summer. Absolutely.
Maybe I'll touch on that piece first and foremost. So I know one thing about myself is I can't work at home, just too much stuff. And I knew I needed to work somewhere specifically. So that was an absolute must-have. So when we were building out the initial budgeting, we did a quick search around town, checked out the local places and all that, and found we landed at there's a chain called HQ. Landed at the HQ Raleigh, which is just a really cool facility. They have a bar, they have a coffee bar, they have events. They really put a lot of effort and resources into supporting a bunch of businesses. And if you were asking them, they'd say they have 150 or so small businesses here. We're in a suite, so it's a small office, but a lot of folks just come here and sit and work on their computer and do their things. Really fantastic, and it's pretty affordable, especially if you don't do the suite. If it's just a couple $100 a month, I think, if you just come in to work. So I really recommend it because, again, there's no way that I could be successful if I was working at home. I know myself.
Right.
But so what I would say what I learned and the bumps and bruises along the way were probably the most important thing to learn how to do that I had to do was to be able to speak clearly and concisely about the business model and what we were trying to do. Because unless one of us was independently wealthy, of which none of us are, you're going to have to get somebody's money in the door to help support this business and grow it. And you're going to have to convince them that there's going to be return there, and you have to show that and be credible and effective. Credible in your presentation and your background, and effective in how you get that out. So there's been an awful lot of work in presenting to investors and having that investor discussion, of which I had 0.0 experience coming into this. So that's probably the biggest body of knowledge that I didn't have. All the other stuff, building, the tools and the budgeting approach and all that, I would definitely say you don't want to ever go into this thinking you're going to need all of that to be able to do all of that yourself, because you have to have a team. You're not good at everything, but you have to be able to dabble in each. So that was all leaning on mentors that I would go to a particular person. Most of these folks, a couple of the folks have been CEO level, a couple of the folks were senior VP level, and I just had the real opportunity to get to know them, to go and say, hey, here's a budget for an early iteration of this company. Does this make sense? And I got to have a CEO level person pick that apart and say, well, why tell me what your assumptions are for this, or how did you build a cost model for that? Those sorts of conversations you have to have if you're going to lead an enterprise, where you're going to get investors. You have to have that conversation.
Yeah, you got to be very careful about planning in a vacuum. Is one of the best terms I took out of military flight planning, mission planning, was don't plan in a vacuum. Don't go off by yourself and come up with a whole mission plan. You've got to be bouncing ideas from the very beginning off your cohorts and comrades and experts, and in this case, mentors. Otherwise, you wasting time, or in the civilian world, you're wasting money.
Yeah, and you have to be able to put your ego in a box and put it on the shelf, because there's a quick way to annoy an experienced and effective professional or an executive, is to try to tell them why they're wrong in your vision. So
you asked me for my advice, and now you're telling me I'm wrong. Yeah, that's not right. A good way to get anywhere.
So it's really good. You learn how to connect to folks and understand and listen. So that's what I'd say. I mean, learn how to talk to the investor, and learn how to understand what's like on their side of the table of that conversation. Put that ego away, and reach out to folks and all these, once you leave the military, you're going to start immediately having all these interactions. Look at each one of those interactions for what they do. What's your part of this business? How do you support this business? How is a dollar made from you? How is your position funded? There's a budget somewhere with every single person's name and position on there. How is that justified in the budget world? That's a great body of knowledge to know.
Yeah. Okay. So Dan, tell us what Field Vets does.
Oh, that's right, my business. So
yeah, I can't forget to talk about that.
So what Field Vets is that we are, with these relationships between some fantastic companies and all the transitioning military resources. What I see as the major pain point is if I'm a business and I say, man, I would love to hire some vets because I love vets and I know they're great. Good luck, company who is trying to start that on your own, because you Google, I want to hire some vets, and you're going to get blasted with that same pile of resources that we get as we're transitioning out. It's mind-numbing. There's too much. Good luck if you want to go to any of the governmental veterans organizations trying to get through their processes. So we aim at making this a one-stop shop. If your company wants to hire vets, come to us, because we can walk this process end to end for you in 3 different ways. And before I just hit real quick on those, there's another half. Right? This is me talking about how we're monetizing this. Mm-hmm. The back half of our ecosystem, as we call it, is all the support stuff you need to support veterans, of which we do not monetize any of that because that's not reasonable. The veterans support stuff and the things we do to get them ready to be employed, that's not monetizable. We're monetizing the relationship to a company. So a company can come to us and say, I want to hire some vets, and they can interact with us 3 different ways. They're going to see this ecosystem, and they're going to either need a turnkey project, and this is all about technology deployment. If you remember that part, all about putting stuff in the field. So if I'm a cable company and I need a team of 20 to go into a particular geographical area to do cable box installation, you can come to me. We'll go out, recruit and staff a team and project manage and do that turnkey end to end and price that out accordingly. There's a bunch of companies who just need that, just pinpoint activities, and we'll project manage that. We're actually doing LED lighting installation in Arizona, moving over into Texas right now with a couple of teams. A second way you can access us is just traditional staffing services. In that initial single point contact, if you say, I need 20 people a month to go into our pool of LED lighting installers. Some companies want specifically that. We can go out, recruit, and place those folks. And again, we're getting paid by the clients to do that kind of thing. So traditional staffing. And then finally, which is really the keystone of the entire business, is just like Thumbtack and TaskRabbit and Fiverr, we're building a marketplace that is aimed at connecting companies who need field stuff done with veterans and transitioning military and their family members who have been trained and supported to do that stuff. And if you've ever used Fiverr, that's really low-level stuff. We're taking it to kind of the other end of the spectrum, which is we can make a task out of a very complex activity and tell that company, post this task on the website on our marketplace because we've got resources on the other side that we've trained to do that. And we do we do training programs to do that. For instance, fiber splicing training, natural gas pipeline mechanic training at a bunch of different training partners. So that's us in a nutshell, monetizing the access to transitioning military as a labor source for companies.
Yeah. So I use Fiverr all the time, man. It's phenomenal experiences on Fiverr. I mean, pay small amounts of money for unbelievable product design or logos, that kind of stuff. But
I used it to have a guy in Madagascar climb a tree and bring down a happy birthday note to my wife. So it was
really,
yeah. If you've never gone to the unusual section, I recommend it. It's fantastic.
No kidding. Wow.
I kid you not.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah. Amazing. Okay. So from the veteran perspective, from the veteran side of things, if you're a veteran looking for what can this do? What can field vets do for the veterans?
Absolutely. And like I was saying, there's a whole half of our business that's just about veteran support and getting transitioning military as well as veterans as a whole and their families into these sort of businesses. So if you come to us, you'll go to our website, fieldvets.com, and see the kind of opportunities that we are promoting and that we have. And if any of those interest you, you come to us. Some of them have specific training courses available that are free to the folks attending, and we'll get you into those. That's a growing piece of our business. There is facilitating training. So at a couple different facilities, one of the biggest efforts is here in North Carolina with the community college system. So you can come to us, take free training courses, and then get directly into that business, go on the marketplace, or go directly to work for us in turnkey projects and go to work. And so the kind of the perfect example of this is if you are transitioning out of, I'm trying to think of one of the bases in Arizona. So you have like the Marine Corps Air Station there, Yuma, right?
Yeah, so it's been many a time there.
Yep. And also Fort Huachuca down the road, right?
Fort Huachuca, yep, been there. Davis Monthan Air Force Base.
Exactly. So if you're transitioning out of there and you say, hey, I think I'd like to learn how to install LED lighting, you can come to me. I'll train you how to do it. You can work like on weekends, or you can work in your off time. Maybe you're going to school using your GI Bill. I can put you to work at night putting in LED lighting and make a decent chunk of change at night so you can pay some of those bills. And then on your resume, not only is it military, but now you've got your education, plus you're working for a very large services business installing lighting in a very well-known banking chain.
No kidding.
So those are the sorts of opportunities we're putting together, and as well as the marketplace, which again, this is the thing that will grow the most from all of our efforts. And our point is that we put you on the marketplace, we expose you to training, and then you can fill your dance card the way that you want to. Again, you can work on the weekends. You can make a full-time job out of it, where you just select tasks that are being posted by the companies we work with. You can put a group of folks together and basically run a whole business across a marketplace like this. So it's sort of entrepreneurial if you want to take it that way.
Yeah.
But that's how we're helping veterans.
That's cool. I mean, so you're like the Uber of freelance field work for veterans.
I'm not sure I can use that term, but yes.
Yeah,
I may have to pay for that.
You might have to ask Uber's permission.
That's right.
Well, that's cool. So, or the Fiverr of freelance field work for veterans too. So,
there you go.
There you go. I mean, that's really the way things are going, and it makes total sense. I love the idea. I mean, if you're still in the military, and you instead of like looking just for a part-time job and you have to go work at the movie theater or McDonald's on the weekends, you can find jobs like this.
Yeah,
and go do that kind of stuff. Because most guys I know, I'd rather do something like this. I'd much rather install LED lighting in some building at night or on the weekends than
go
right? Work in retail or fast food or the restaurant
or work at Target. I love them, but it was awful.
Yeah, I don't think I know several guys that have done the Target and the Home Depot. Here's your store. You're there 80 hours a week. Have at it.
I tell you what, I learned so much though from just that experience. I mean, I learned how different things really are and things can be, and I learned an unbelievable amount from those folks in Rocky Mountain. I value all of them because they taught me a lot. Yeah, they really did.
Well, there's a lot of value in learning what you're not good at and learning what you don't like.
Totally agree.
It really helps you appreciate it when you're in your zone and you're in doing something you love and and you're naturally good at it. Life's so much easier and everything's so much better.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can only appreciate that if you've had all the stuff you're not good at or all those bad experiences ahead of time.
I agree. I definitely would say, to sum up that Target thing, is I don't know if I fully appreciated how other people saw me and what I did until I talked to folks about that, where I was completely out of my element. I didn't grow up in that realm. I started having challenges, and the team looked at me and said, "Hey, guess what? You're the leader. What are you going to do about this?" Yeah. Right? I really gained a lot of appreciation for how other people see the world.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, things are definitely different in the civilian world. I mean, there's a different focus. It's the bottom line. It's the almighty dollar. And sometimes in the military, you hear people talking about money, and we view people as greedy or money grubbing because you're concerned about money, this kind of thing in the military. But the fact is, everybody in the military their money's taken care of. They got that guaranteed 2-week paycheck and TRICARE and the retirement if you stick around long enough. So it's easy to say I don't care about money when you're in the military. I'm just focused on the mission. But the fact is, your financial needs are theoretically met. I mean, granted, sometimes the military paycheck isn't all that much, but it's always guaranteed. It's always there. Yep. And that's much more than you can say out in the civilian sector. So,
I would say one thing is I've spent a lot of time helping as much as I had time doing all these other things, helping to mentor, being a resource to folks in transition. And maybe for another day we could talk about those sorts of things, because I've really put a lot of thought into some specific things I learned about the hiring manager discussion, about again seeing yourself for what you are instead of what we think that we are as we go into that employment process and all that. So maybe for another day.
Right. Well, hey Dan, one last thing. How do we find field vets? I mean, if there's a veteran out there, or if there's a business owner that's looking to hire veterans out in the field, how do we get that started?
Absolutely. It's a very exotic sounding website, fieldvets.com. Just as it sounds, fieldvets, all one word, .com. I'm on there. There's an info at Field Vets. You could reach out. You can reach out to me, Dan at fieldvets.com, or just connect with me on LinkedIn. I put a lot of stuff and positions over my personal account and post to groups and all that. So love to help out, whether you end up working with my company, or if there's something I can do to support folks in transition. Love to do that.
All right, excellent. Hey, one last thing from going way back to the beginning of the interview. It was the Dallas, USS Dallas, that was in the Tom Clancy, The Hunt for Red October, wasn't it? Okay.
Bart Mancuso's boat. Right.
That's awesome. All right, great. Yep. I just had to clear that up, make sure I got that right. Awesome.
It was.
Okay. All right, Dan. Well, that's it for now. We're out of time. So thanks for all the great advice and information, and thanks for sharing your entrepreneurial story. Look forward to seeing your success.
Thanks to you, Joe.
All right. These two veterans are Oscar Mike. As you can tell from listening to the Veteran on the Move podcast, interviews are a great way to tell your story and spread the word about your business. If you would like to get booked as a podcast guest, I recommend Interview Valet. You can check out Interview Valet at veteranonthemove.com/valet. Be sure to check out Thrive15.com, the world's premier online education platform that helps entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, and intrapreneurs learn how to start or grow a successful business. Start your free 30-day membership by going to Thrive15.com and use the promo code VETERAN. Thank you for listening to Veteran on the Move, your pathfinder to freedom. If you like the show, leave us a review on iTunes. Reviews are always greatly appreciated. So until next time, this veteran is Oscar Mike.